Good afternoon, everyone. This is Joyce Cook. It's another episode of Sobering Truths, where we seek to lower the reputation of alcohol in the court of public opinion. And we have Miss Ira Stevens as a co host, and we also have a guest, Mr. Coty Powers. He is owner or co owner, is it, Cody? Of
Owner of Powers Bell Bonds.
Powers Bell Bonds. I didn't know if you had a partner. And incidentally, he's also a candidate for Arkansas State Representative District 30. And we want to welcome you. And I want to get right to it. Cody, in your experience as a bail bondsman, how often does alcohol play a role in arrest or incarceration?
Well, I think it's hard to really quantify how often alcohol is involved. However, I can say without a doubt, not only as a bail bondsman, but I also have served in the capacity as a child abuse and neglect investigator for the state of Arkansas for 6 years and an elder neglect and abuse investigator. But in all three of those roles, alcohol and also drugs, illegal drugs and all that, but have almost always, oftentimes, they play a role. And, um, you know, these individuals, their lives, they end up in the court system. They end up in needing child welfare services or a bail bondsman because of alcohol. Oftentimes, they're even if maybe it's methamphetamine now. Oftentimes, that began with alcohol, and it's sad some of the things you see out there. Alcohol is kind of the in our society the more acceptable mind altering substance compared to others.
Right.
Um, it gets um, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just more widely accepted. It's not frowned upon as other mind altering substances. However, I've never really seen any good come from it.
Me neither.
Never seen any good come from it. And even in the short term, it causes problems. It can cause health issues. It can cause legal issues. Uh, People often, here in Northeast Arkansas, they're drinking alcohol. They're probably not taking very good care of their kids, their dependents, their elderly parents. If they're driving, they got several thousand pounds. They're driving down the road, and they're under the influence. So
True.
um, I see a lot of DWIs, and it's kind of odd to me how DWIs are almost laughed at. It's almost a
Yeah.
joke.
It's not a
Uh,
laughing matter.
it's not a laughing matter. One time, I had a gentleman. Um, he was he in Lawrence County, where I'm from. It's a very small county. One I was in law enforcement part time for about 2 years before, and I remember this gentleman. Uh, he was driving where I'm from. It's very hilly, very hilly. He was driving up this hill. You couldn't see over the other side of it, but he was on the left side of the road.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I pulled him over. I pulled him over, and he was swerving back and forth. Luckily, no one was coming. I pulled him over. When I finally let him know, once I ascertained what was going on, he 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 kind of was flippant about the whole issue. Interestingly, he was heading to a lawyer's house. That
Oh,
lawyer is now a judge, a circuit judge,
wow.
and he was heading to a judge's house. He fled on foot from me. He ran into the woods. Gave chase. He got away from me. He contacted the then prosecutor, negotiated his surrender, and to make a long story short, he was. Everyone just kind of took it as a laughing matter, even though someone could have died that night.
That's true. It's not funny.
So the
And
prosecutor
you know
didn't
what?
take. seriously. The judge didn't take it seriously. No one seems to take it seriously. But everyone was mad because I enforced the law upon this individual.
You were the bad
You know,
guy.
what's frustrating is you see in some of the court reports, you see some of these people have had DUI over DUI after DUI. They've had numerous, and I thought, and you can help maybe with that. I thought we had a limit of if you had been arrested, under the influence a certain number of times, you went to jail and stayed there. But
Yes.
I've just, to me, that's we're not paying enough attention to it. And how many wrecks, we read the statistics, how many wrecks are created from people who've been drinking? And it's what, almost 50% of the wrecks on the road.
Hmm.
Amen to that.
So it's beyond my comprehension that we don't take this very seriously until one of our own kids or husband or wife or relatives or something like that is hit and killed or severely injured, and it's a case of a DUI.
Yes. Yes. My mentor growing up, uh, his name is Don Eubanks. Um, he was one of my, well, in my teenage years, he was the preacher that lived across the road from me. He and his wife, Janice Eubanks, they were originally from Missouri. Janice had lost, before she was married to Don, she had been married previously. And she lost her whole family in a drunk driving incident.
Mm.
And that always stuck with me as a teenager, how dead serious that decision to drink and drive was to her, but how flippant we are as a society with alcohol. And I find the disconnect there somewhat disturbing.
Me too. Well, Cody, how does alcohol misuse affect families? I think you kind of answered that, and communities beyond the individual that's charged.
Yes. Well, you know, taking out the whole legal issue, let's just for a moment, a thought experiment here. Even if oh, driving while intoxicated was not illegal, there was no legal issues from alcohol. Alcohol itself, um, just like any other drug, it changes a person, especially with long term use. I mean, in the short term, yes, it's a mind altering substance, but very rarely do people just use these alcohol, sparingly. It's usually folks I know either use it a lot or they don't use it at all. There's not much in between. Uh, and I've seen families, I mean, children, they have just come to expect it. They know dad is going to be uh, passed out drunk by 9 o'clock. So
Right.
it's kind of um, a sad situation. I've seen people, as time goes on, deal with liver issues. Later on in life, they're yellow. They have liver issues because their liver is no longer functioning correctly. And I've had to sit there. I worked for hospice for 2 years, and a lot of our individuals, they they were quite frank. They'd be, Cody, I'm dying now because I've been drinking alcohol my whole life since I was a teenager, and it's messed up my liver.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and I sat there and had to watch them um, die
Yeah.
because of it. Children, and it's very subtle. And this is the thing. I tell folks, think about this. Imagine a family where this alcohol issue was not a problem at all. Let's say you have a family over here, a mother, a father, two children. Sometimes the neglect is not just bam in your face. It's not running into people's cars and killing them. Sometimes it's a slow trickle of neglect, a pattern of neglect. It's not being able to go to a child's ball game. It's not being able to all that money spent. It's not being able to buy the groceries you need. It's not being able to provide the supervision that little children need when they're young. It's not being able to kids ball games because you're at the house. You know, uh,
Passed out.
passed out or getting drunk. And it's small thing. And these children, they learn to accept it. They learn to live with it. They love their families. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying parents that do this don't love their children. It's just the craving, the addiction they have to these substances is just out of control.
Hmm.
And I have people very close to me that I know um, they cannot live without alcohol. As a matter of fact, and it's sad that I have to say this, that I cannot imagine these individuals without alcohol. It's
Yeah,
this individual and alcohol are synonymous. And at this point in my life, this family member, I cannot imagine this person ever living with alcohol because that's just what they do.
that's
They
part of who
drink,
they are.
and it it's disturbing. The money spent, the little the little moments of being absent, the little moments of not being there, the little moments of not being fully aware of what's going on, the little moments of not being able to supervise your children, the little moments of, and so it's not just that. Oftentimes, people who drink, I know a good many individuals that it changes their personality.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know,
And not for the
we have
good.
folks that, it's kind of a joke here in Northeast Arkansas. We got funny drunks and we got mean drunks.
Mm.
And some people, they drink and they're kind of silly. Some people drink and they kind of space out. And then some people drink and they're mean. And men and women, and they will tell you that. And they're, and these people, their families, their friends have to deal with that.
True.
I
And
can,
it's weird when you come from a family that you haven't seen any of this before, and you get out in the wonderful wide world, and you run into these people, and you don't have any ability to deal with it because you've never been around it before. That's also an issue that I've
yes,
seen fairly frequently. I was not aware of. Nobody in my immediate family that I knew of had a drinking problem. And so I was an adult before I got out and saw people that really did, and I didn't know how to deal with it.
exactly.
So I can't
Well,
imagine kids growing up like that.
I
I
did.
did grow up with individuals near me that did drink quite a bit. And I look back, it was normal at the time. I didn't think anything much of it, but um, I can remember violence. I can remember things being demolished in my house because, this particular individual was uh, uh, a mean drunk, you might say.
Yeah. Mm.
So I can remember being when I was growing up. It was normal for um, in my and I'm not trying to name any names here or anything. I can remember going to party with adults. It was normal in my community. Parents would take their children to wild parties, and we kids we run around the house and play outside. Our parents would drink and play cards inside the house and play music. And the next thing I know, uh, we're driving home, and they get out the car, they can barely stand up. And I'm like, how in the world did we just make it home?
Yeah.
So, it's a surprise. Sometimes I look back at my childhood and I'm like, boy, it's a surprise. I'm even here today.
Right. How did you make it?
How did
Well,
I make it? But so again, alcohol. Some of us have more. Our families, just from our families, their use of it. Luckily, I don't feel like it affected my family as negatively as it could have, but just one. We were just one. We were probably, as my professors in college, I had a professor that used this expression. We were probably just a gnat's eyelash width away from our life being completely different.
right.
So, um,
Right. Well,
just all of a sudden, if everything had just lined up, if someone had been coming down the road that particular night
hmm,
or something like that, but
just fate. Well, that
yeah,
kind of begs the question: do you think the public fully understands the connection between alcohol and the criminal justice system?
I think Here's what I think. I think the public is largely, we can throw statistics at them. I think a lot of folks recognize that alcohol is a problem, but I think they don't care. I think that's what it
Right.
comes down to ultimately. I know a lot of elected officials, a lot of folks we could talk to, we're blue in the face and throw statistics at them, and at the end of the day, alcohol is has been viewed as cool. It's been viewed as a businessman's drink.
And it raises a lot of money for taxes.
There's a lot of money for taxes,
Yeah.
so it's an acceptable level of bad that we learn to live with. So it's just a matter of. I don't think it's just education. I think it's just a matter of priorities.
Yeah.
Well, when you don't, when you really, when, you know, and I really agree with you that I think so many people, especially politicians, leadership positions, don't really care until it happens to their family. And of course, I think it's that way with a lot of things. We don't really care. Um,
Yes.
I see people who care more about their kids doing other kinds of drugs. And of course, alcohol is a drug. You know, the kids used to learn that in the DARE program that alcohol is the drug, and usually the first drug that kids get exposed to before they start using other drugs. And I think the fact that we don't have more people wanting to tighten up our alcohol situations, and you know, it's really sad because you know, Craighead County is a dry county, and we've had nothing but city leaders letting in alcohol permit after alcohol permit after alcohol to the point that we've got 70 restaurants, 70 some restaurants here in town and bars that have alcohol. They've got to know the statistics. They've got to know the problems. They've got to know the, you know, even the policing problems that happen from this, and yet they don't care.
Hmm.
They don't, and um, it's it's against what the people wanted anyway.
Yeah.
Like the ABC board just gave the green light to every one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that had to have been bought. That had to have come about from money crossing hands, I think, because there were enough. I was during the during that time period. You know, I went with Bob down a few times, and I knew enough about the situation. They had lots of times. They had a lot of people and city leaders who were against alcohol, and the ABC board went ahead and just blithely passed it. And said, no, you don't have the right to make your own determination. And I'm sorry, I just after years of dealing with politicians and political situations, that had to have been a result of money changing hands. And the alcohol industry has, billions and billions to work with. So it's not hard to buy people to make those kind of decisions.
No.
Right. And now they, the younger people are not so much going for alcohol, but that's good news. But some of them are replacing it with marijuana. So what it seems like you get one problem fixed and something else crops up,
Yeah.
and it's very frustrating. But as I had said before, you're also a candidate for state representative in District 30. And
Yes.
if you were elected, what role do you think that state government should play in reducing alcohol harm?
Exactly. Well, there's two things that immediately come to mind. The first thing, and I've said this over and over, and I know it's probably not the popular thing. It's not probably the thing that's going to get me elected, but I believe in honoring the people's vote. So here in Arkansas, we have a set of laws that says, okay, the people in each county can decide whether or not alcohol can be sold or given away, manufactured in that county. And Craighead County, some time ago, probably several decades ago, y'all probably know the exact date. I can't remember the exact year, but the voters decided this is a dry county. We're not going to sell or give away alcohol here. Yet somehow, uh, the state legislature back a few decades ago said, no, well, okay, we're going to honor that, but not 100%. We're going to let clubs, private clubs, sell or give away alcohol. So we're going to, let these uh, establishments have liquor and beer. And so now, and even then, I think a lot of these, um, you go down to your local. If I want to go get a steak, I can go have a beer. I can have liquor with it, whatever I want. Craig County is about the wettest dry county I know of.
Hmm.
That's our reputation.
I feel like it really defeats the purpose of that law. Uh, I remember the Bible talked about making the traditions of men making the law of God of no effect. Well, this is one of those traditions, one of these laws that makes the previous law, the will of the people, the law that actually honors the will of the people, of no effect. And I think we shouldn't have an ABC board. I think you're either a wet county or you're a dry county.
Amen.
And
You know
I
what's
think,
ironic is that I'm sorry to interrupt, but what's even more frustrating is the ABC board is an appointed board. It's not subject to voters, voting. We're not happy with what you're doing, so we're going to vote you out. It's appointed by the governor, so he can always say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but it's appointed by the governor, and he can always say, well, I'm going to appoint my people who really like alcohol because I think alcohol is good financially for counties. And we've got the statistics. We've talked about them here about how the statistics are not good. They pull in so much tax money, but they never tell you how much tax money they have to shovel out for the problems that alcohol creates. And in Craighead County, we've had 3 separate votes. The last one was in 2014 that indicated that the people here wanted a dry county. The last one, they couldn't even get enough signatures. This was in 2014. They couldn't even get enough signatures on the petition to
exactly.
make us a wet county. To me, that counts as a vote against having a wet county. So,
Exactly.
when you let bureaucrats, and that's what the ABC board is, they're just appointed bureaucrats make decisions for other parts of the state that have already made their decision, that in some way should be totally and terribly illegal.
Yeah.
Looks like I don't know how it would work, but looks like it could be challenged in the Arkansas Supreme Court.
Well, it has been challenged twice, I think, and both times they refused to hear it, I think is what the decision was.
I think we just need to have the political will to go for people to go down to the General Assembly and just change it. I think
Yeah,
that's the key right there. Just okay, this is how it's been, but we're not going to do it this way anymore. Um,
that's about
I
the
want
only way you could do it.
exactly, and I want to know, like with the ABC board, what is the criteria? I don't imagine there's a criteria they have published, but in each member of the ABC board, what is their personal criteria for a no vote? Okay, Mr. Board Member, and in which instance would you vote no? I would really like to ask them, is there really a situation in which they would vote no?
That's an interesting question there.
That's a
Yeah,
good one.
And I think, and I'm not sure about this, but usually appoint certain boards when they're appointed by the governor, they require Senate confirmation. I'm not running for the Senate, I'm running for the House, and I'm not sure if the ABC board is subject to Senate confirmation, but if it is, if I were a senator, I would like to. That would be a question I'd ask any appointee. Uh, ma'am, sir, when would you vote no? In which instances would you vote no? Obviously, you've got to be willing to do it to begin with, or you wouldn't even accept an appointment to the ABC board. So there has to be a certain level of being okay with the use of alcohol. But in which instances would you say no? And I'm genuinely, personally curious about that.
yes, because all they've done is a runaround um, of the law. It's kind of like the people in the national news, how we're having to get the police force, the ICE, to, you know, deport these people. And that one judge was, they were coming in the front door of the courthouse to get the illegal immigrant, and she was taking them out the back door. You
That's
know,
right.
everybody has to go by the law. As that side has said, nobody is above the law. Well, that means them too, or anybody that's
Exactly.
going against the law. And I feel like the ABC board and whomever the powers be have gone against the will of the people.
They have. They sure have. I think not only abolishing the ABC board and what they do, but and the whole framework of issuing issuing licenses to private clubs in dry counties. I think that should be prohibited. But in addition to that, I feel like as a state we don't take DUI that seriously. And in Arkansas, when a person is convicted of a DWI, it's either a DWI one, two, DWI three, depending on how many times. However, if they don't get the conviction in so many years, it kind of restarts.
Oh, wow.
I don't like that. I think that shows that we're not that serious about it.
Yeah, like you said, it's almost like a joke, that first person you were talking about.
Yes. If
And
if I go out and commit DWI today and um, I wait um, 10 years and do it again, I don't think that should be considered DWI one. That should be DWI two. And it gets progressively heavier the sentence, and prosecutors and judges should have their hands tied when it comes to probationary sentences. They should have their hands tied when it comes to suspending an imposition of a sentence. We the people of the state need to tell our prosecutors and our judges, if someone's convicted of this, this will be the penalty. There's
no wiggle room.
no wiggle room. No wiggle room with probation. No wiggle room with imposing a suspended sentence. We got to say we take this seriously,
Yes,
and I
I
think that's the way
agree.
to do it.
I I totally agree. And sometimes those that are in charge of that, they may be fellow drinkers and feel sorry for them. But I
Yes.
just think they need to be mandatory to go to a class where they're shown um, pictures or videos of people that have been in wrecks and hear their stories and how it's affected
Yep.
their lives, because they don't have to, pay any consequences really.
Yep. My office. I have a business in Arkansas and Missouri. My Missouri office is located right beside an Alcoholic Anonymous meeting
Hmm.
place. As a matter of fact, the individual from whom I rent my office building is the head of this group.
Hmm.
He's an older gentleman. He's a very well known man in this community, and he was involved in politics for quite some time in the state of Missouri. And he said, Cody, alcohol and politics go hand in hand.
Mm.
It's just part of it. But he said it control of me, and I wanted to be in politics. And the next thing you know, to fit in, you had to drink. And before you know it, I just never stopped drinking.
Right.
And it's kind of sad that that's the way. I'm not saying that's how it still is, or that's the way it is in Arkansas, but uh, I imagine there's a lot of truth in what he said. And
Right.
so I see a lot of folks here every single day. They are meeting. These are folks that have recognized the control this substance has over their life, and and they often meet daily because they need it. They need someone almost daily to help with that desire to get a drink.
Yeah.
And I admire them. I applaud them for that. I do. But I think, like you said, until we show people how dead serious the consequences could be for alcohol. And I'm not just talking about the legal consequences. I'm talking about life or death. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about children living in uh, going without because dad and mom decided to buy a 30 pack every single day of the
Right.
week.
They need to
Uh,
be shown the emotional impact, the family impact, the physical aspect if they get into cause a wreck,
mhm.
what it does to people, and it needs to be just pounded into their heads, you know. Um, but well, I'm looking at the clock. We got about 2 minutes, and do you all want to add anything else to the conversation?
Well, I think I would because we've been talking about alcohol and just touched on other drugs uh, for a couple of seconds, but I looked at a couple of studies here lately, and well, a lot more than a couple, but this is the information I got. 40%, 45% after work of millennials and Gen Z individuals
Mm-hmm.
drink alcohol. 24% use nicotine, and 20% use weed after they get off work to calm down. But the weed, the marijuana is beginning, and marijuana infused drinks are beginning to overtake the use of alcohol in a lot of those situations. And it boils down to we have people that, for some reason, cannot handle, I guess it's the stress of daily life. They have to have something to suppress the stress, suppress the fear, the anxiety, the workload, whatever. And until we approach that, until we try to deal with that, it makes what we're trying to do even harder, or at least it makes it as hard because it's kind of, I look at it like eating. People can avoid drinking if they're addicted. Look at people who are very overweight who are addicted to food. They can't give up food. You can give up alcohol. They can't give up. Can you imagine the stress? And I can see why people would drink to relieve the stress. So until you approach all of those, until we approach our kids with not having to have mind altering chemicals in order to make it through life, we're really, really pushing a big rock uphill.
Yeah, we are.
Exactly.
I don't know if we have much time. I'm 38 years old now, and I kind of hinted at some of my personal experiences in life. But I'm not saying in my life I was always a saint. There have been times I wasn't a saint, but some of those times I justified my actions because, well, you know, so and so did it, and it was just easy to do. And I can remember working for the Department of Corrections and coming home stressed, and I didn't. I like to have a glass of wine for dinner at that time, and but before you know it, I was drinking a significant portion of the bottle of wine till I was asleep, and I noticed it was kind of a negative feedback because um, it it caused other issues. It caused the next day I would be more lethargic. I would be tired, which would cause more stress. It would cause my immune system to not be fully
Mm-hmm.
operational, which caused me to be sick all the time. I would be foggy headed a lot. I would have less focus. I would have all these negative and unintended consequences that came with it, which just you would want to go home and do it again. So just make you want to do it more. But it is alcohol can have a it's very sneaky. It's very sneaky, in whatever form one might consume it. It can be very deceptive, and it can be fun for about 30 minutes, and then after that, it's not.
And it's so socially acceptable. That's
It's
one of the big
socially
problems. It's so socially acceptable.
And people want
exactly.
their kids to do it like they think that they're grown up when they're doing that. Like people will put picture of their kid. I know someone, I won't mention the name, but someone put picture of their child on Facebook having their first drink. Wow, what a wonderful thing to brag about. You might have started them on a bad path, you know. And I remember a person I worked with um, was complaining about their teenage daughter had a party at his house, and it wasn't because they were drinking, but they spilled the wine on the rug. But I mean, people just don't think about that stuff. I mean, it's like in Bizarro world, like, oh, you're worried about that, but you're not worried about some of those kids getting out and getting killed, and you being
Yeah,
liable for it, or just feeling bad for the kids. And
exactly.
I don't
And
understand it.
I feel like marijuana is taking much the place of alcohol for our young generation today. But and people like to minimize the effects of marijuana. Um, people don't are as less they're less likely to die in a fiery car crash when they use marijuana, and that may or may not be true. Even if I concede the fact it's true, I see a lot of people around me, young people especially, they use this marijuana, and they become it dulls them.
Yeah.
It very much does. It makes them lazy. I hate to say it, but they become lazy. They become if they use enough, they become paranoid,
Hmm.
almost schizophrenic at times, and it worries me that weed, marijuana is the new is the younger generation's alcohol.
Right.
And so, I know we're talking about alcohol here, but I think that is,
So
you
there's still
know,
mind altering chemicals, both of them.
yes,
Yeah.
And the
exactly,
fact that a lot of us older people, that drank and whatnot we'll eventually be out of here. And it's sad that we see kids younger than us, sometimes a lot younger than us, picking up habits that are just as bad as the ones that we had. And marijuana and obviously some of the other drugs have really difficult, really bad physical things that happen to you. And like you said, they really mess you up mentally.
yes,
Alcohol messes you up mentally too. But these kids think that they're bypassing that by using marijuana, and it doesn't. It's just as bad on you as alcohol in a lot of different areas. So
exactly,
it's trying to avoid reality. That's the
exactly,
problem. Alcohol and marijuana both. Use of that is an attempt to avoid reality.
exactly. And I tell these young folks, my daughter and her friends, I tell them all the time, and this is well known. Marijuana in this day and time, this is not your grandpa's marijuana. This is significantly
Right.
more potent.
Yeah.
It is much more potent, and
It's all poison.
these strains of marijuana are grown and genetically they're chosen because they are extremely. This is not Papa's uh, cheap weed. This is this is industrial, very potent marijuana, and it even though the state is letting people sell it, it's very unhealthy. With my
Yeah.
Yes.
And people have those supposedly quote unquote medical cards, marijuana cards, and um, I I just think that's a joke to me. Some may need it, very small percentage, but I think it's so easy to get from what I hear. But
yeah.
anyway, well, if you all don't have anything else, we'll be back next week with another episode of Sobering Truth. And Cody, thank you for being with us. And
Well,
ours,
thank
I'll
y'all for
see
having
you
me.
next week. Thank you.
See y'all later.